Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What a be, what a do. Welcome back to Baller Nation. This is the Off the Dome podcast, episode 10 now. Thank you very much for your support. If you guys are watching this at all, I'm thanking you already. I appreciate that. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, comment, stuff you want to see in future videos and stuff like that. And yeah, I appreciate you. Today, I'm going to be going over some of the power rankings right now in the NBA. These power rankings were made on Saturday, but it's not Saturday anymore, so they're a little bit off, but I think for the most part, they're still pretty accurate. I was supposed to record this weekend, but I did not. So yeah, but we're here. Last night, or I hope you guys, I don't know if you guys do, but I watched a lot of football. I watched all the NFL wild card games. That shit was hype. I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah, my Seahawks lost, but whatever. I kind of expected that. The Rams defense is just too good, and Russell Wilson, he's ass. Low key, he's ass. High key, he's ass. But yeah, the Steelers lost, which other than Pouncey or pretty much other than Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner, we were pretty sad about, because those two guys just, I'm a Canadian, but is it Connor? Whoever the fuck that or Claypool and Connor, I don't fucking know, the TikTok motherfuckers, all of them. We don't care, but Ben Roethlisberger, my heart goes out to my guy. Pouncey as well, the center, who fucked that first play up. My heart goes out to my guy. Shades of Super Bowl 48 when my Seahawks won that shit. And on Monday night, we had the great, well, not really great, but we had the BCS or the FBS National Championship game between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ohio State Buckeyes. I don't know. This is just shit I watch, okay? Yeah, the Crimson Tide just they raped Ohio, it wasn't even close. I thought it'd be a bit of a close game. I thought they'd go back and forth, but Alabama's defense decided to show up, and therefore Ohio State was fucked. They also had a shit ton of injuries too, but as the Cleveland Browns showed, that's no excuse. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, enough about football. Let's talk about basketball, a sport that I don't think, or a large part of America wasn't really paying attention to over the weekend, because it was such a big weekend for the NFL and for college football as well. I did watch a lot more football than basketball this weekend, but that being said, I'm going to still record a quick little podcast for your ass, and hope that you enjoy. So without further ado, let's get going. The power rankings right now are pretty accurate in my estimation. That's because I made them. That was a dumb thing to say. Anyway, let's jump into this. Starting at the top for me, the best team in the NBA. This is going off who I think would win in a 7-game series if that said series started at this very moment in time. I do have the Brooklyn Nets in here though, and at this moment in time, they don't know where Kyrie Irving is. So, and they also can't fucking win. So, they probably wouldn't be able to win a 7-game series. But with that being said, they're still in here. Starting off at number 1 are the Lakers. I think the LA Lakers, they should be at the top of everyone's power rankings. The fucking Lakers, led by LeBron, who isn't slowing down, led by Anthony Davis, who's only getting better. Trez is a great pickup, as we knew he would be. Schroeder he was kind of slow coming out of the gates, but he'll come on. And guys like LeBron James, this is we're watching LeBron James and he's balling out right now. LeBron is balling out every night right now. But this is as bad as we're going to see him all year long. He's not playing bad at all, but he's playing really good. But this is the worst version of LeBron we're going to see all year long, because he's only going to get better. And come playoff time, the man you're watching on TV right now, it's going to be a whole different dude, like it always is, like it is every single year. LeBron, he's a great regular season player. We all know that. But as good as he is in the regular season, he's a whole nother man in the playoffs. We all know that by now. We all know that. LeBron in the playoffs is fucking different. Just like all the other greats that have come before him. But unlike all the other greats, LeBron, he's got another gear above a lot of other greats. He's up there. He elevates his game. I think you could argue pretty much only Michael Jordan elevated his game as much as LeBron James does in the playoffs. Kevin Durant does the same thing. Kawhi does the same thing, but it's not to the same level. It's not to the same skill. It's not to the same peak as LeBron James. We should all be able to agree on that. Well, and that's the scary thing when I'm seeing some of these games where I see LeBron James kind of dominate, and I'm like, yo, what? This isn't like. I thought he was going to ease his way into the season, and I think he is easing his way into the season. But LeBron James easing his way into the season is pretty much every other player in NBA history's like all-time greatest 10-game stretch of the year of their career. Like that's the reality of the situation. That's because LeBron James, man. That's why people call him the GOAT. That's why he's arguably the GOAT, undisputed top 2 player of all time. King James, leading the Lakers like we expected him to do, and he hasn't, like he has done his entire career other than 2011. LeBron James does not disappoint. When you could argue 2019, but really when you look at LeBron's career, it is 18 years long now, and he's had higher expectations than any other player in my lifetime. I can't really speak for what kind of expectations were going into players before I was really born, but I know that since I've been watching basketball and in my lifetime, LeBron James has had more expectation than any other player, and for every single year other than 2011 in the finals, LeBron James has lived up and gone above and beyond the expectations that were put out in front of him every single year. I guess 2019, but he got hurt. I guess he could have done more in 2019. But look at last year. We put all the expectation on LeBron James. You always got to go out and win a championship. And what did he do? 5-game series in the first round, 5-game series in the second round, 5-game series in the third round, 6-game series in the fourth round. Finals MVP. That's what the man does. King James, LBJ, he soon to be GOAT, I think. By the time he retires, he'll be the GOAT in most people's eyes. I still got MJ. But if you got LeBron, I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at that. Moving on, let's go Clippers. The number 2 spot right now for me. The Clippers right now, I'm going to check their record real quick. They are second in the Western Conference behind the Lakers. Lakers are 8-3. Clippers are 7-4. The Clippers, the thing with the Clippers, man, I swear to God, is every single game. The Clippers I've officially crowned as the first quarter champions or the first half champions, whichever you want to say. Because this is what this team does literally every game. They build up a 20-point lead, a 10, 15, 20-point lead. Normally it's a 15 to 20-point lead. They build that up in the first half, and then, or in the first quarter, and then slowly in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, they start losing that lead. They start, oh shit, now it's a 5-point game, it's a 2-point game. Oh, now we're down 2. And more often than not, the Clippers are able to win that game. But what happened against Golden State, when we saw against the Nuggets last year in the playoffs, the Clippers build this big lead and then they let it slip away. I mean, goddamn, this is what the Clippers do. I've labeled the Clippers the first quarter champions because they always build up this massive lead in the first quarter or the first half. It's a 20-point game for the Clippers. It's smooth sailing from here on out. And the thing is, they keep Kawhi and they keep Paul George and they keep all their guys in, but they always let their opponent back in the game. Every single game, they build up this massive lead, and then the opponent comes back in. You know that picture? You know that picture that they took. Or, that famous picture of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George sitting on the bench after they lost to the Denver Nuggets? They've been recreating that picture multiple times this year. I've seen the same look on Kawhi and Paul George's face at the end of a game that they just blew a 20-point lead in. It's like, oh, fuck. Here we go again. But it happens every game. It happens, I swear to God, every time I watch the Clippers. The Clippers always have this big lead. Every time I see the Clippers always have this big lead, and then they blow the lead. Now, blowing the lead doesn't mean that you lose the game. Blowing the lead means you had a 20-point game. You had a 20-point lead, and now it's down to 2. Now it's down to 1. Now you're down by 1. Okay, you still can come back and win the game, but the fact of the matter is, when you have a big lead like that, if you want to be a championship team, if you want to be a championship contending team, if you want to be a team that can beat the Lakers 4 out of 7 in 4 times out of 7 games, your ass better be able to keep a 20-point lead, because you're not going to get a 20-point lead against the Lakers. By the way, it happened against the Lakers opening night. The Clippers, they built up this massive first quarter lead, and in the third quarter, the Lakers were right back in it. The Clippers were up by like 20, 25 points at one point, I think, in the first half. And the Lakers got their way back in it. Now, Paul George went off in that game. Paul George, he saved the Clippers on opening night. But the same thing happens, and it's a little bit ridiculous. But you know what? Whatever. That's why I got the Clippers at 2. Still a very good team. Come on, let's be real now. At number 3, I'm going with the Boston Celtics. Man, Boston, bro. I'm gonna be talking about their guys a bit later. I'm gonna be talking about Jaylen Brown especially a bit later. But these guys, man, this is that young team that we were in awe of the Celtics a few years ago. You know, we were all that young team that almost beat LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2018. That took the Cavaliers, that took LeBron James, the king, the daddy of the Eastern Conference. They took that man 7 games, a long, grueling 7 games. They had I think they had like a 10-point lead on the Cavs with 7 minutes left. They had Jason Tatum throwing down a poster, rookie Jason Tatum putting LeBron James on a poster, bumping him after. That team, we were all like, yo. Now, they lost that game, but even the biggest LeBron fans were like, yo, those boys in Boston, man. You said how? You said Tatum's 19? You said Jaylen Brown's 20? You said Marcus Smart's 20? This is a good young team, and they haven't disappointed. I don't think they've disappointed. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I forget, in 2000, the year the Bucks and the Raptors played in the finals, or in the Eastern Conference Finals, they lost to the Bucks, I think. It's not that important. Yeah, they lost to the Bucks. But yeah, I mean, you look at Boston, and they had a really good young team a few years ago, and those players are still young, and those players are extremely experienced for their age. Most 22-year-olds haven't been to 3 conference finals like Jason Tatum. I think he's been to 3. I don't know. My math is pretty shit. But guys like Marcus Smart, I think, have been to 3. Jaylen Brown. These guys have a ton of experience for their age. No, Tatum's been to 2. Yeah, I think. But right now they're 7-3. And Jaylen Brown's turning into an all-star caliber player. Jason Tatum, we already knew he was an all-star caliber player. And it doesn't matter what. And I always say, if you're a fringe all-star in the Eastern Conference, that's an asterisk because you wouldn't make it in the West. Jaylen Brown will make it. It doesn't matter what conference you put Jaylen Brown in. He's making an all-star team convincingly. He belongs in the all-star game the way that he's playing right now. Now it is 7 games. They've only played 10 games. But if we can take a sample, if this is a sample size of what's to come from Jaylen Brown, from what's to come from Jason Tatum, we've played 7 games. The Celtics have won we've played 10 games. The Celtics have won 7 games. Tatum's already hit 2 game winners. This man's clutch. He's got ice flowing through his veins. You know, he's a big. We've seen him perform really well in the playoffs. But Jaylen Brown, I think he's definitely impressed me. I rank this man 43 out of 50. I rank this man the 43rd best player in the NBA before the season started. I'm gonna be the first person to tell you I'm dead wrong. I was dead wrong about that shit. And by the way, I'm not like, y'all let me know too. Okay, when I posted that shit, everyone's like, yo, you're wrong about this one, man. I'm like, you know what? I thought y'all were crazy, but upon further review, I've decided that no, I'm taking the full blame. I am dead wrong in that shit, and I'm not scared to admit that. But yeah, Jaylen Brown, I mean, he's been absolutely balling out. The Celtics, they've got the top spot right now in the Eastern Conference. They've won 4 in a row. They're looking really good. By the way, I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. And that's what I love to see about the NBA too, is that when the season first kind of starts, and even now, it's still very early, but the first 5-6 games, the standings are so fucked up. Like Boston and Milwaukee were like the 10th and 11th seeds in the Eastern Conference. Now you look at it, look who's the top 2. Boston at number 1, Milwaukee at number 2. Those are the big 2 teams, I think, in the East. Philadelphia's really impressed me. They have lost 3 in a row. Indiana's impressed me. They have lost, I think, Indiana's lost 2 in a row. But Philadelphia and Indiana, I think they're for real. They can challenge any team in the Eastern Conference. They can give them a 6 or 7 game series. Teams like Miami, they're starting to come on a little bit more. And what was the other team? Toronto's been playing like some ass. But was it Miami, Milwaukee, Boston, and Brooklyn. I don't know what the fuck's going on with Brooklyn. They're 5 and 6 right now. I don't know what's going on with the Brooklyn Nets. But let's move on to the Phoenix Suns. I've got the Suns at the 3 seed right now. They are out in the Western Conference. They lost their last game. They're sitting at 7-4, good enough to be tied with the Clippers for the top or the 2nd seed in the West. They're a game behind the Lakers. This is a team that I think I'm really cheering for this team, and I wasn't really sold on this team just because they got Chris Paul, I wasn't gonna be like, oh, these guys are a contender. They can go out there, they can make the second round, the third round of the playoffs, especially in this Western Conference. In a conference that features the Lakers and Clippers, obviously, but teams like the Utah Jazz, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Denver Nuggets, even teams like the Mavericks, the Warriors, they're no pushover. So I was a bit hesitant on really calling the Suns a contending team in the West, a team that has a chance to make the third round of the playoffs in the West. Now, I'm still a bit hesitant. I think they're a second round team right now at best. That's just because the Clippers and Lakers, I think, will. This is the year that we're going to see Kawhi versus LeBron, not in the finals. This is the year we're going to see Kawhi and LeBron. I mean, LeBron's not really at his peak anymore, but he's still arguably the best player in the world. I think he's the best player in the world. We got a chance to see arguably the two best players in the world go up against each other. Of course, the last time we saw Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James in the playoffs versing each other was back in 2014. Now, and I'm a Spurs fan, but I'm going to tell you right now, regardless of what the stat line will show you, Kawhi Leonard got the better of LeBron James in that series. I think Kawhi outplayed LeBron James in that series in 2014. Now, this is neither here nor there. I'm just saying, the last time we saw Kawhi and LeBron, we saw young Kawhi Leonard, a person who no one really gave a chance to guard LeBron James, go out there. He proved to everybody that this man was for real. He did it on the defensive side of things, and that's what really impressed people. They saw this man, Kawhi Leonard, holding LeBron James to virtually nothing. Now, the stats are going to show you LeBron averaged 25, 27 points a game, something like that. But when you look at the advanced stats, the advanced metrics, what did LeBron do against Kawhi? Virtually nothing. And that's really what caught the world by surprise. That was really Kawhi Leonard's coming out party. So it's pretty interesting. Let's see what Kawhi, and I think we all want to see Lakers Clippers in the third round. The Phoenix Suns, though, where do they fit in the Western Conference? I think they're a very good team. I think we can all see them winning a playoff series. Now, the second round comes around, they're going to be faced off against a team like the Lakers, a team like the Clippers, or a team like the Nuggets even, and that's going to be tough. That's going to be very tough. And I just don't think that they're good enough to win that series. But Chris Paul, he seems to always find a way to prove everybody wrong. So I'm very excited to see what he and the Clippers can do, or he and the Suns and Devin Booker can do, and DeAndre Ayton as well, who's taking tremendous strides so far this year. Moving on, the Brooklyn Nets. I've got the Brooklyn Nets at fifth right now in my power rankings. I shouldn't. Remember, I made this. When did I make this? I made this like 2 days ago. They lost two. No, I made this on Saturday. It's Tuesday, so 4 days ago. What the fuck? I was literally sitting here like 2 weeks ago saying, yo, the Brooklyn Nets team, this is for real. And I was telling Boston Celtic fans. I was like, yo, I know you guys love your boy Jaylen Brown, but he's not good enough to beat the Brooklyn Nets. And I was so confident, and I was so cocky. But now I look back at it, and I'm like, yo, hold on. Mr. Baller Nation, you have made a severe lapse in judgment, because fuck me, that Boston Celtic team, as things stand right now, the way that I'm seeing the Eastern Conference right now, this Celtics team not only could beat the Brooklyn Nets, but I think would beat the Brooklyn Nets and are a better team than the Brooklyn Nets right now, especially when you got a guy like Kyrie Irving who's off the grid. What does that mean? Off the grid. Kyrie Irving, man, get your shit together. That being said, it's like 10 games into the year. I don't really care about what this team does right now. I want to see what they do in the playoffs. I want to see Kyrie show up in the playoffs. I want to see 2016 and 2017 Kyrie Irving, the Kyrie that we all fell in love with. I want to see that man back in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Kevin Durant's going to Kevin Durant. The loss of Spencer Dinwiddie hurt a lot, but it's still a great team. Karis LeVert, shout out to him. He's been balling out this year. I should have picked him in fantasy basketball, by the way. And literally in all my leagues I was in, I was like, yo, Kyrie's, I know he's great, but he's playing with KD and Kyrie. I should have fucking picked LeVert. Let's move on now to my sixth. At sixth, I've gone with the Milwaukee Bucks. Keep in mind, I made this 4 days ago. But the Bucks have won 2 in a row. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's starting to pick things up. The back-to-back MVP. He's going for the three-peat MVP. I don't think, the narrative isn't there for him to win, so he's probably not going to win. Narrative's a bitch. Shout out Dante DiVincenzo, though. Big shout out the boy. He's been balling out so far this year. And a lot of other guys, too. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. there's been a lot of great players. I think that the Milwaukee Bucks, they're still the Bucks. They're still a team with arguably the best player in the world, and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the middle, leading that team, dominating both ends of the floor, and they've got great shooters surrounding Giannis. Chris Middleton's still that guy. Brook Lopez, he can ball out. This is still a team that they'll challenge anybody in a playoff series. They're not an easy out in the playoffs. They're going to be a very tough team to take down in the playoffs. I've gone with the Brooklyn Net with the Milwaukee Bucks at the 6th seed. They are currently second in the Eastern Conference as we speak right now. At number 7, I've gone with the Utah Jazz. This team led by the third highest paid player in the history of the NBA, and Rudy Gobert. The Utah Jazz, man, you look at these guys, and they're led by Donovan Mitchell, but I think more impressively, we got to be looking at Rudy Gobert, and I'm going to be taking a look into Rudy Gobert's stats a bit later, I think, but the Jazz currently sitting at 4th in the Western Conference. They're 6-4. This team led by Rudy Gobert and what's his name? Donovan Mitchell, D-Mitch and Rudy. They're the big two on this team. Those are the two guys that if they got the chemistry going, they are going to be they're a tough team to play. And in the Western Conference, I think they could push the Lakers to 6 games. They could push the Clippers 6 or 7 games. They're not going to be I don't think they'll be a pushover in the playoffs. But I guess we're going to see about that, depending on how Donovan Mitchell plays, depending on how Mike Conley plays, guys like Jordan Clarkson. By the way, Joe Ingles just recently missed his first game, and I think it was 455 games, something like that. This man played over 450 consecutive games. Joe Ingles, the Iron Man of the NBA, just missed his first game in what's like almost 5 years now. Might be 5 years. You see a lot of really big athletes in the NBA. There's a lot of guys like LeBron and Kawhi. There's a lot of big guys like Giannis. But at the end of the day, the best athlete of them all is Joe Ingles. Just remember that. Big shout out to boy Joe Ingles, man. He's built too. 6'7", 220. That's a big man right there. He's a durable ass motherfucker, man. Utah Jazz at 7. At number 8, I gone with the Golden State Warriors. Golden State making their first appearance on my top 10. I didn't trust this team at all. I said Steph Curry can't win without Klay Thompson. Turns out I was wrong. Stephen Curry can't win without Draymond Green. Listen, Steph Curry's an absolute straight baller, but can he do it himself? No. Can any player do it themselves? No. And you see Draymond Green. Draymond is one of these motherfuckers who does not need to score to have a big impact on the game of basketball. Okay, there are certain players in the league whose stats do not reflect the value that they bring to their team. Do not let anybody out there tell you that if you don't score, you're not valuable to your team. Just look at a guy like Draymond Green. Y'all love to hate on the motherfucker. I know you like to hate on Draymond Green. You say, oh, he's this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, when Draymond Green is playing with Steph Curry now Draymond can't lead a team by himself. But Draymond Green is what I like to call a ceiling raiser. You put Draymond on a really shit team, that team is going to stay shit. You put Draymond on a really good team, that team is going to go out there and fuck around and win a championship or two. And that's what happened in Golden State. That team's not winning without Draymond Green. As much as you want to hate on Draymond, that team's not winning without Golden State, without Draymond Green. Draymond Green would have won Finals MVP in 2016 if the Warriors won. And he missed a game. Draymond Green, this man, he's so valuable to the Golden State Warriors. And I know everyone loves to hate on him, but there are certain players in the league like Draymond Green who don't need to put up big stats, especially offensively, to be valuable to their team. Remember, Draymond Green is the motherfucker who got a triple-double and scored 9 points. Man got a 9-point triple-double. Where the fuck else do you see that? Nowhere. This man is a weird... That's what I love Draymond, man. He's one of those guys who wears his heart in his sleeve. He gets in a controversy, okay, but when the going gets tough, you can rely on Draymond Green to go out there and give you results. He does what's best for the team, and that's what I love. That's what I respect about Draymond Green. His value goes way beyond scoring. Please, man, when it comes to Draymond, don't listen to those people who hate on the guy, because this man can ball. Going on to number 9, the Philadelphia 76ers. It's pretty clear to me that the Philadelphia 76ers, they're not that 7-2 team that they were at the beginning of the year. What was they? 7-1. They was 7-1. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 7-4. They're still tied with the second best record in the Eastern Conference. They're not that best. They're not the best defensive team in the NBA like they were at the beginning of the year. They had an easier schedule. They've lost 3 games in a row. But that being said, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, they're still ballers. You know what I mean? And I've thought about this recently. And I've told a few people this. But imagine how much more respect young people would have for Magic Johnson if Ben Simmons never existed. Because the minute you bring up a guy like Magic Johnson, everyone says, "Oh, he's just a little bit better than Ben Simmons. He's just Ben Simmons but better." You're right. But you can't just say Magic Johnson, he's just Ben Simmons but better. He's way better than Ben Simmons, bro. He's like 20 times the player Ben Simmons was. Motherfucker saying just because I don't know how to explain this shit in a way where you understand there is such a big difference between Magic Johnson's ability and Ben Simmons' ability. Magic Johnson, he could pass the ball way better than Ben Simmons ever could. Magic Johnson, he would legitimately play any position on a basketball court. This man put up a fucking 40-point triple-double as a rookie playing center in Game 6 of the NBA Finals to win the NBA Finals without, wait for it, the best player in the fucking world at the time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This man dominated the NBA for 10 years. Magic Johnson did more in the 1980s than pretty much any other player has ever done in a 10-year span. You know, other than a guy like Michael Jordan or Bill Russell. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who did more in a decade than Magic Johnson did in the 1980s. I mean, I guess you'd argue LeBron James last decade. But still, all right, who the fuck else? You got LeBron, MJ, and Bill Russell. That's not a bad list. That's not a bad list at all. Imagine if Ben Simmons never existed, we would look at Magic Johnson as a fucking god. But because Ben Simmons came in, everyone immediately assumes that if Magic Johnson played in today's NBA, he would just be as good as Ben Simmons. Bitch, he wouldn't though. He wouldn't at all. Like, he'd be 20 times the fucking player Ben Simmons is. Ben Simmons is great, but he ain't doing the shit. He ain't running like Magic. He ain't scoring like Magic. He ain't passing like Magic. You know, he ain't the show that Magic Johnson was. He was the showtime. He was a showstopper. He sold out seats more than any other player in NBA history, other than guys like Dr. J or Michael Jordan. He's on that short list of players who would pack arenas night in and night out. Legitimately sell out season tickets in minutes. Him and Larry Bird saved the entirety of the NBA. Y'all gotta put some respect on Magic Johnson's name. He is much better than Ben Simmons ever would be, okay? Like, don't let Ben Simmons' ability or lack of ability to score influence you or whatever. Don't let Ben Simmons' shitness at times convince you that Magic Johnson also wasn't that good, okay? Because let's be real. He's a top 5 player in NBA history, in my opinion. Yeah, that's my rant on Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, or fucking Magic Johnson. At number 10, I've gone with the Indiana Pacers. This team started off a lot better. They started off 6-2. They're 6-4 now. They're 4th in the East. Domantas Sabonis. Can we all talk about this man for a second? It was no fluke that Sabonis made the All-Star game last year. Like, let's be real. This man, he's been on an absolute tear so far this season. And I'm gonna be talking about some of these guys too, real quick here. I'm gonna be going through. I've selected a few players right now I'm gonna be going through their stats, looking how they're doing so far this season. But anyway, that's my top 10 as of last Saturday. Pacers at 10, 76ers at 9, Warriors at number 8, Jazz at 7, Bucks at 6, Nets at 5, Suns at 4, Celtics at 3, and Clippers at 2, Lakers at 1. Let's move on now to that was kind of the power rankings. We're almost at 30 minutes right now on the show. Let's get going. The points. Let's take a look at. I've selected a few players that I wanted to take a look at real quick here. I'm gonna start off with Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. He's been leading the NBA so far in points per game. He's sitting at a cool 34.9 points per game. That's 6 higher than Stephen Curry, who's in second place. This man's been dominating so far this year. What I'm about to say, though, about Bradley Beal, I've never really been completely sold on Bradley Beal. I think that a lot of his scoring is what I think to be empty calories. Now, what I'm about to say might make people mad, or will make people mad, but I honestly, like, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to jump to conclusions. I'm not trying to push a narrative. When I'm saying what I'm about to say. Okay, but why is it, just a genuine question, why is it that when Bradley Beal puts up 40, 50, 60 points in a loss, everyone runs to his aid and says, "Oh, poor Bradley Beal, he should get traded," and all you see on social media is jersey swaps of Bradley Beal in other places. But when someone like Russell Westbrook, when he used to be putting up 40-point triple-doubles, 30-point triple-doubles every other night in Oklahoma City, and whenever he lost, everyone just shit on him because he was stat padding, because his stats didn't equal wins. Why is it when James Harden goes crazy in a loss, oh, he's just stat padding, he can't get wins? But when Bradley Beal does pretty much the exact same thing, let's be real, he does pretty much the exact same thing, everyone feels bad for him. I don't get it. I don't understand. If you know why that is, let me know. I don't understand it. I don't think stat padding's that bad either. Like, it's not even that bad of a problem. But I just don't get why some people are criticized for it. Some people are criticized for empty calories and other people aren't. I don't understand that. Bradley Beal, let's be real. This man's been going off this year. He's been going off, but he's on, what is it? He's on a 3-8 team, 13th in the Eastern Conference. He's on a shit team. Okay. Now, when Russell Westbrook was putting up crazy numbers, when James Harden was putting up crazy numbers, and his teams were doing a lot better than Beal's team is doing right now, everyone was still shitting on him because he wasn't winning when he was going off, or he was stat padding, this, that, and the other. I don't understand. I get it. Some people just don't like other people as much, but, at the end of the day, I don't understand it. This man's putting up 34.9 points per game, 5 boards, 5 assists. He's been going off. 37% from 3, not great. Just under 50% from the field. But yeah, Beal, far and away having a career high season so far, and far and away leading the league in points per game. That's Bradley Beal. I've got a few more guys here that's going to go through. Stephen Curry, so far this year, I talked about him a little bit before, but he started off this year struggling, and he struggled the other night. I think he shot 2 of 16 or something like that from downtown the other night. By far his worst, his worst shooting performance in his career. 2 of 16. That's like a James Harden stat line right there. Except Harden does that every other night. But let's take a look at what he's been putting up so far. Stephen Curry this season, he is still Stephen Curry. It's MVP type beat. 28.6 points a game, 5 boards, 6.7 assists. Not shooting great from the 3-point line. 36.8%. That's not amazing. He's well under 50% from the field. But he has been like that for his entire career. That's because the majority of his shots come from downtown. But I'm gonna tell you something right now. In the year off we had of Stephen Curry, pretty much, we haven't seen, or we forgot about how good motherfuckers could be at shooting free throws. Because there've always been really good free throw shooters in the NBA, but until you see someone who's a superstar, a guy like Steph Curry, a guy like KD, until you see them going crazy at the free throw line, you're like, oh shit. This motherfucker's shooting 95% from the free throw line so far this year. That's just 95.7% from the free throw line. That's genuinely ridiculous. I do not understand how someone can do that. He's absolutely automatic from the free throw line. But yeah, he has been struggling a little bit from downtown. But that being said, his team's been coming on. His team's starting to put together wins now. They've won, I think, now 5 out of the last 6, 4 out of the last 5. Golden State is starting to put shit together. And Stephen Curry, man, this year, watch out, because he's coming. It's still Stephen Curry, and if he can still have Draymond, if this team had Klay Thompson, by the way, I think let's all agree on something real quick. if Golden State had Dre, Clay, and Steph all healthy right now, with the other guys they've got, they could win a championship. They could beat the Lakers. They really could. I think they really could. They could beat the Celtics and the Bucks and the Nets and the Clippers. They could beat those teams if they had Klay Thompson. At least a prime Klay Thompson. If Klay Thompson came back as good as he once was. That being said, this team right now, this is a team that, depending on who they get matched up against in the first round, could win the playoff series, but they're not getting past the second round. I don't think. Even with a guy like Draymond Green and Steph Curry leading the charges. Moving on to the only player in the NBA who's still averaging a triple-double, who is averaging a triple-double right now, Nikola Jokic, a fantasy basketball demigod. I'm a proud owner of Nikola Jokic on two of my fantasy teams, two of three of my fantasy teams. This man right now, Nikola Jokic, I think he's, when you look at who's been having the best season so far, I got to go with Jokic. I really do. I genuinely believe Jokic has been having the best season so far. Now his number, like, he's had a few recent games where his stats are declining, but that's because as time goes on, everything starts averaging out. But Nikola Jokic, he's having one of these years, man. He's having an MVP type year. If Denver can finish top 4 in the West, like I think they could, like I think you probably think they could, this man could fuck around win an MVP. Is the narrative there for him to win an MVP? No. The narrative's there for Luka and LeBron. So it's going to be one of those two guys to win an MVP. As unfortunate as this is, the MVP doesn't go out to the person who deserves it the most anymore. It goes out to the person who has a narrative around them, which is unfortunate. But whatever, who cares? What's he putting up? 24 points per game, 11 boards a game, and 10.4 assists per game. That's good enough for. He's averaging the second most assists per game in the NBA, and this man's 7 foot tall. The best passing big man in league history, I think. That being said, I would like to quickly give a quick shout out to the one and only Wilt Chamberlain, because I don't know why, but everyone always is so quick to say Jokic is the best passing big man of all time. They forget Wilt Chamberlain led the league in assists per game once in his career. Like, Wilt, when he wanted to, he could pass the basketball really well. He didn't win championships until he passed the basketball. Wilt Chamberlain, all those years that you remember, all those famous stats, 50 points per game in a year, 100-point games, all his crazy seasons, those are all like the first 4 or 5 years of his career, and he wasn't winning with that. He couldn't win with that. You come in the playoffs, you can't win with that. You can't beat the Celtics with that. It's not until he got a lot of really good players around him, and his coach started to tell him, hey, Wilt, it can't be all about you. You got to pass the basketball around. You got to facilitate, and that just shows Wilt's greatness, because he was willing to give up scoring that many points per game to turn into a player who now is a facilitator. He's a facilitating big man. He can still score. He's still fucking Wilt Chamberlain, but he can still pass the basketball just as good as any other big man in history. But I think when it's all said and done, Jokic will be known as the guy who was the best passing big in history, as he should be. Let's go on. James Harden this year. He's been kind of going under the radar so far this year. He had a really big opening night, and he was averaging 35 points per game until just recently. He's had a few lower scoring games. But through 7 games, he's sitting at 26 points per game, which is when was the last time he was putting up 20? He hasn't put up 26 points per game since 2013-14, the second year he was in Houston. I mean, this man. This is uncharted territory now for James Harden. He's not shooting the ball real good right now. It's 64% from downtown, 46% from the field, which is actually 46% from the field. That's as high as it's ever been since he joined the Houston Rockets so far. Actually, yeah, it is, which I didn't find out until just now. He's leading the NBA in assists per game now. James Harden, the Houston Rockets have been kind of stumbling out of the gates. I think they're going to start to get it together, just like the Denver Nuggets. They're going to start to get together. I want to talk about Jared Allen and Rudy Gobert real quick too. We saw them match up against each other a few nights ago, I think last week. But Jared Allen being paid $10 million 4-year contract. That's dirt cheap. That is dirt cheap. Talk about the most underpaid player in the NBA, I think. Jared Allen. He's putting up 11.6 points per game, 10.9 boards per game. And he's second in the NBA in blocks per game. He's sitting at, what's he at now? 1.5. No, that can't be right. He's not. No, Gobert is second in the NBA in blocks per game. And I want to talk about Rudy Gobert real quick because everyone's so quick to assume Rudy Gobert is overrated now, but I think Rudy Gobert has actually become pretty much underrated at this point because he got a massive contract that he didn't deserve. Everyone knows he didn't deserve that. I mean, he doesn't take a genius to figure that shit out, that he has not deserved to be the third highest player in NBA history. That makes no sense at all. I'm a big Rudy Gobert fan though, and I think it's very unfair that people hate on him because he started the coronavirus in the NBA. Hold on. Side note. Hold this thought of Rudy Gobert. Motherfuckers, listen. Rudy Gobert, he saved so many people's lives by getting coronavirus. Shout out Rudy Gobert. Could you imagine if that man never got COVID? Because let me tell you something. COVID was probably in the NBA. There was NBA players who probably had coronavirus before Rudy Gobert. And even if they didn't, they was going to get it. Let's be real. Just because Rudy Gobert got tested first doesn't mean that he had it first. Let's be real about that. If he never got COVID and if motherfuckers kept going to games and if we kept selling out, how many people sit in an NBA stadium? 20,000 people? If we kept having sold out 20,000 people NBA games, imagine how much worse coronavirus would be right now in the NBA. Because remember, once Gobert got it, the NBA shut down. Once the NBA shut down, the NHL, the fucking MLB, the MLS, every fucking other thing in America shut down. Rudy Gobert, y'all hate the man, but he probably saved one of your family members' lives. Just think about that. If he never got COVID, it wouldn't have shut down that early. If it didn't shut down that early, shit would be hitting the fucking fan even harder than it currently is. Just that's a thought. That's what goes through my head. There's probably some person in the comments right now who's going, well, actually, ain't nobody give a fuck. All right, let's move on. Yeah, shout out Rudy Gobert, the coronavirus king, defensive player of the year, back to back. But I mean, the guy he's second in the NBA in blocks per game, second in the NBA in rebounds per game. He's putting up 12.4 points per game. He's not shooting the ball really well, which is kind of concerning. But they don't pay him to score. They just pay him to be a fucking. He's just a presence. He's intimidating as fuck. Ain't nobody want nothing to do with Rudy Gobert. No one can do shit against Rudy Gobert, pretty much. I mean, there's Jared Allen ate the fucking guy alive, but he's a man amongst boys in there. And I always said this: if the Golden State Warriors, I'm going back to Golden State now, but if the Warriors had brought in Rudy Gobert, because I thought they had a chance of packaging that second overall pick and some of the other young guys they had on their team, trading for Rudy Gobert, and then Curry, Gobert, fucking Draymond, and Clay, chip, ring. I don't care what you say. But yeah, okay, let's go on. I've got two more players here. Real quick, Miles Turner, shout out this man. He's played 10 games and he's still averaging 4 blocks per game. Miles Turner he's played 10 games and he's averaging 4 blocks per game, and still all I hear, oh, Giannis for Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, Anthony Davis for Defensive Player of the Year. Why does no one give Miles Turner any credit for this man's defense, bro? No, this man never gets any credit, bro. Never gets credit. He's never in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't get it. I do not get it. Is he going to average 4 blocks a game for the rest of the year? No. 2 years ago, he put up 2.7 blocks per game. I mean, I think he put up 3 blocks per game this year. I can see that shit happening. He is a presence for the Indiana Pacers. And talk about the Pacers, man. You look at Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis in the middle. That's a scary team. That's a very scary team. Those two guys are for real. I already talked about Jaylen Brown. LeBron James and balling out. Sabonis, like I said, balling out. That's it. That's what I got to say today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy this show. This is a bit longer one than usual, but if you guys like them this long, then I'll give it to you this long. Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. And Mike Dean, Kanye, like you do every time, man. Take these motherfuckers to church, baby.
Let me get more volume.